Hi everyone, I'm back. There is an update on vaccines. So we have just heard that the government have announced that vaccines are going to be mandatory for care home workers, which is causing so much controversy, not least because a lot of people are, for either religious reasons, disability reasons, or the fact that we don't actually know if it's safe, for fertility reasons, for example, are actually refusing the vaccine for those reasons and may now lose their jobs. So there's so much controversy around this area. So I just wanted to clarify a few key legal points. So number one, if you're dismissed for refusing to have a vaccine and you work in a care home, can you bring a claim for unfair dismissal? Well, actually, you can, but the reality is the employer are likely to have a pretty strong argument that, one, there's a fair reason because you're failing to follow a reasonable management instruction. Also, it's reasonable potentially because the government are mandating it to the employer. It's kind of out of their hands. So it's likely to be that the government will tell the employers this is what you have to do, and the employers will then have to pass that to the employees. So any claim for unfair dismissal is likely to be defended on the basis it's a fair reason and that it's within the band of reasonable responses available to them as an employer because they have been mandated to do this by the government. So all employers will be acting in the same and or similar way. So I do think that there will be issues. I mean, obviously, you've got to follow a fair process in doing that. But equally, you are going to see a number of people potentially losing their jobs because they have no option because the government have mandated it. There could also be arguments around the other type of fair reason, which is called some other substantial reason. Now, that's where we're looking at, there's not necessarily misconduct, but they're saying, it's a substantial reason. It's because the government have mandated it. So that's potentially another way that the employer could argue. But I think the misconduct is going to be their better argument if they're going to have to defend anything like this. The second thing is looking at discrimination. Now, we know that there's been a real issue around uptake in certain protected characteristics. So one of those is ethnic minorities, so for religious or cultural reasons within particular race. Those are protected under race and religion under the Equality Act as a group. The same as for women who are concerned about fertility. Now, these are protected groups. There is a provision, criterion or practice, what we call, it's like the requirement for everybody to have the vaccine. That places those groups at a substantial disadvantage because they'll potentially lose their jobs, be demoted, be relocated, for example. So in those situations, they have what we call a prima facie case for a discrimination claim. However, the employer then have to discharge that burden essentially and say, well, we have first of all, a legitimate aim. So our aim is, and it's as set out by the government, first of all, we're trying to do it for public health reasons, but also it's to protect the vulnerable residents. Secondly, the tribunal, if this claim is brought, will look at things like whether or not that legitimate aim was proportionate. And actually, I think there's going to be some really strong arguments for employers again on proportionality because of the situation that they're in. It is out of their hands. It's not as though they're deciding for this to happen. It's likely to be proportionate in my view. So I think there's going to be some real issues for lots of employees in these really difficult times. I mean, these cases are new. We've never been in this situation before, so we're certainly going to see an influx of these types of cases if they do go down the dismissal route. Now, there are alternatives to dismissal. You can relocate them so that they're not facing the individuals who are high risk, so the residents. But I do think that's really difficult because, if you're working in a care home, you're usually a carer. So it's going to be a really, really difficult situation for so many employers. So my advice would be, my top tips for employers and employees is really engage in this process. Try to have a really open and honest conversation around, what you can do, whether there's something alternative, and really try to manage the situation carefully, because the real risk here is if you just bulldoze through as an employer and end up dismissing lots of people. First of all, you may not have enough people to care for the residents, and secondly, you may end up damaging the morale of the team that are left who are having to pick up the pieces. So there's a wider mental health piece here as well as just doing the right thing. So my message to employers is to really try to consult with your staff as early as possible. Try to be as open and honest as you can, and employees engage in that process as much as you can, and highlight any concerns that you do have to your employer, and try to come to an arrangement to avoid things like discrimination or dismissals. Hopefully this has been helpful. I am going to do some more videos actually. So if you guys have any suggestions of videos that you would like me to do, please get in touch. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and share, and same on IGTV. I absolutely love it when you guys comment and ask questions. So please get in touch. And if you've got any suggestions of content, you know where I am, and I'll see you very, very soon.